Good evening, ladies and gentlemen. I'm John Delvecchio from Street Skills, and welcome to session number 2 of Cornering Confidence. My goal for this 30-minute live stream is to have a Q&A session on Cornering Confidence, chapters 1 through 4, including straight and flat, confidence, body position, and looseness. And more specifically, just in the interest of time, we could focus more on straight and flat, the guiding principles, and body position. The other two are pretty simple. And tonight, if we could just focus on questions or clarifications regarding these techniques and your experience practicing these things. Now, the first thing I want to get started with is let's just see if anybody's in here. I'm sort of looking at the chat. There's 4 people watching, and it'd be interesting if I could get some questions or comments, welcome information, and we'll give it a little time here, and I hope everybody's doing well. Well, I might as well get going here. I got 30 minutes, and I'm going to cover some things. I'm sure people will be chiming in as we go along here. Good. Thomas is here. When it comes to curves, brakes are for cowards, okay? Looks like we might have a little bit of a heckler here tonight. I disagree 100%. Brakes, trail braking in particular, it's the golden brass ring we all want. Now, I'm going to start with the straight and flat guiding principles. And what you want to think about if you're following the Cornering Confidence program is that in a curve, we want to keep our motorcycle as upright as possible. All right, that's going to give us some benefits we're going to talk about in a moment. We also want to keep the chassis flat, front to rear. Some slight bias is expected, but generally speaking, we want to keep the chassis perfectly flat. We're not Marc Marquez. We're not these GP riders that are getting that rear tire off the ground and still making the turn. We want to keep both feet planted. Now, if we take a look at some information I put here, the straight principle provides us with 3 really important things. First of all, stability, lean angle in reserve, and ground clearance. Now, when I mean stability, we're talking about less likelihood of falling over in a curve. And if we are more upright, we can make sure that we can keep that motorcycle rubber side down, so to speak. If we lose control of our motorcycle, it's easier to regain traction when the motorcycle is more vertically upright. And you can actually see the GP riders when they lose the front end or whatever, they'll actually press their knee down to straighten the motorcycle up. It'll help them regain that balance. Now, the straight principle also gives us more lean angle in reserve. So if we're going through a turn and the motorcycle is at full lean and we need more, let's say, steering to the inside, we won't have it. If we have a straighter motorcycle, then we can actually make a steering change with more stability in either direction. That's the general idea. And at any given point, a straighter motorcycle has more ground clearance, and we won't be dragging things like our toes or motorcycle parts. This is really important for cruiser riders who tend to have lower ground clearance to begin with. Their chassis sit a little bit lower, their pegs and floorboards, that kind of thing. Now, we're going to find that this is easy when we get to body position. It's simple just to get inside. I call it kiss the mirror. Now, before we get into the flat principle over here, the guiding principle, I just want to point out a couple of things. The first thing is the traction pie. So we know that we don't have unlimited traction, and in order to, I guess, manage our traction, we have to understand that we're requesting we go slow and turn with the traction, and what is left over is extra. And generally speaking, these aren't usually always balanced like this. They can fluctuate back and forth depending on what we're trying to do here. But for example, if we were to brake too hard, if you see there's this much extra traction, we could consume that. Once you go outside this traction pie, you've basically lost traction. Now, another thing that's very important that you understand about traction is that it's split between the front and rear. Now, it's usually not 100% or 50%, 50-50 here, but it could be, it's biased in one way or another. This is constantly kind of going back and forth because of just the chassis pitch. But we do want to keep as balanced the traction as possible. We know we can't have it 100%, but we want to keep it as balanced as possible. So these are interesting concepts that you really need to understand about traction before we move on. And Dale's here. How you doing, Dale? Looking for, there's a few more. We're back up to that 8 people that I had last time. And if you're just showing up a little bit late here, I just basically got into straight and flat, the guiding principles, and we're now moving on to the flat. Now, this is where it's a little bit more difficult. Keeping a flat suspension really does separate, I guess, the better riders from the aspiring. With stability, with the straight principle, we can kiss the mirror, and the more we kiss the mirror, the less lean angle of the motorcycle. And of course, we get into that in the book and in the online course and my any training that I do. But when it comes to keeping the suspension flat, that really takes time to master. And the reasons why we want to prevent the motorcycle from pitching back and forth, first of all, we want to keep the chassis, the suspension happy in the sweet spot. We don't want to fully compress forks, fully extend forks, and the same thing with the shocks and back. We want to make sure that they're in that sweet spot in the middle where they can actually do their job. Now, another thing that gives us is better traction distribution. We don't want to lift this tire off. We want weight on this tire. And one of the things that I do like to stress here is that we're going to get better traction distribution because we want to weight a tire before fully trusting traction, which would mean if we're unweighting a tire, then it's not going to be able to grip. And of course, predictable steering, when we actually wildly pitch the chassis back and forth, it's doing things to the steering geometry and our speed perhaps, and we want to eliminate that abruptness. Now I'm going to go to questions here, and I'm specifically looking for straight and flat questions right now or clarifications on anything that I just said for the first part here. Now, thanks for taking the time to help teach us. My pleasure. Found the page, but now one of the favorites. Wow, hey, that's really nice to hear. Just got the book in the mail. Can't wait to read and learn. Now, I'm continuing with these over a 6-week period, so if you have questions, bring them. And you have some reading ahead of you if you just got it, but it's a pretty quick read. It's only a 78-page book. Now, where do I get the book from? It's on Amazon. Sport Riding Techniques is an outstanding book. It's one of my favorites. It's influenced tremendously what I do and what I teach, in addition to many other resources. But I strongly advise people read Sport Bike Riding Techniques by Nick Einach. There's so many good books out there, and that one in particular is really more like an encyclopedic type of book. And so mine sort of complements that because it's more of a method book. the formula for 100% controlling curves. Now, it seems like people pretty much got the straight and flat down. I mean, that is an important thing that I want to leave here with that. When you're riding down the road, think about your inputs. Are you doing things to keep the motorcycle straight and flat, right? So we're going to kiss the mirror. We're going to get our chest center line. So if this is, we're sitting on the motorcycle and we're going into this turn, we want to get our chest center line inside the motorcycles, and that we're kissing the mirror over there. And that's actually going to help us make that turn. If I'm coming the other direction, get that face down by the mirror and then make that turn. Now, remember that the more you kiss the mirror, the straighter the motorcycle will be. It's like an inverse relationship. All right, if you were to do like supermoto style, you're kissing the opposite mirror. And I must say that when I teach people my curriculum, two things about kissing the mirror that is notable. First of all, they all think that they're kissing the mirror more than they are. They're kind of barely moving their chest inside, which is acceptable. But when they think they're really in there kissing the mirror, when I tell them they can do it more, sometimes they're a bit surprised by that. And the second thing, forgot what the second thing was. But the more you kiss the mirror, the straighter the motorcycle will be. Let's move on to confidence. All right. Somebody type down there at the bottom, type a comment here. What is confidence? Can anybody really share what that is? Confidence is the sum of knowledge and experience. And the point I like to make about confidence is if we read a book, we're not going to be that great. If we just ride a motorcycle, we're not going to reach our full potential. And so we add these two things together. We take a class, we read a book, we watch a YouTube video, we do something, and then we attach it to that. We tie that skill to the experience, and we get some feedback on that, and we learn how to be a better rider. Now, I'm looking for questions or comments. I'd really like to see if anybody is here from that read the book or is enrolled in the online course. This is specifically for you. Other people are welcome. The people who are reading my book in the online course, they might have questions, and it might even be a good refresher for people who've taken my classes. So I can move on. Really, we're moving quite nicely through here. I only wanted to be about 30 minutes, which is kind of a nice amount of time. Now, moving down the list, let's have a look at body position. What are some of the body position questions that you have based off of cornering confidence? Just had a random person stopping by. Okay, Turg Burglar. Hello, just had a random person stopping by. Are they still there? Do you have any questions about body position? We actually, have talked about straight and flat guiding principles, confidence. If you haven't read the book or you're not enrolled in the online course, then those things may be a little bit foreign to you at this time. Brian, can you maybe say, why you bought the book? I see that you just got the book in the mail. What was it that prompted you to pick up the book? Okay, well, I want to just keep things moving here. Let's go on to body position. Body position is something that is overlooked by a lot of people. We think we know. We think we sort of know the right thing. We took our basic rider course, let's say, or our friends show us how to sit on a motorcycle. But there are things that we can do to make to make the motorcycle want to turn better. And it looks like the burglar there has no questions, living vicarious through the motorcycle rides. Well, you know, there's always time to get on a motorcycle. Now, I usually talk to people head to toe. Okay, now see, yes, Phil, welcome. It's nice to see a familiar name. And I know that Phil has been involved with Cornering Confidence, the book, and perhaps even the online course at this time. We go back a little ways, don't we? Now, talking about, I'm going to go to Phil's question first. Talk about body position differences when riding in very, very tight twisties versus sweepers. It all comes down to your speed. If you want to take a sharper turn at a faster speed, you may have to lean in a little bit more, counteract the forces, keep the motorcycle more vertically straighter. Remember, if a turn requires us go through at this lean angle, we can kiss the mirror and lean inside, and we can effectively give ourselves less lean angle just by moving our body position. And I will also say that sweepers versus very tight, if you're going slower, then you're not going to have to turn. You're not going to have to really move too much around that motorcycle. What I typically will tell people is, get that chest center line at least in line with the motorcycle, and a little bit inside helps. When I go through very, very tight twisties, waist up, I am kissing the mirror and leaning in. And if I'm going more aggressively, I will kiss the mirror, lean in more aggressively. It's really a personal preference how much you like to lean in. I personally will sometimes even get off the seat if I'm on a road like the Tail of the Dragon, really, really, really tight twisties. But it's exhausting if you're gonna move around the foot pegs a lot. You can really tucker out your legs. So for that, that's a good question. I would just say that you don't have to be really aggressive with your body movements if you're going through a slight or a sweeper. It just really depends on the speed you're going and how aggressive you want to ride that day. Getting back into riding after a long layoff. Used to ride a lot off-road. That's fantastic. I'm trying to get more off-road myself now because I'm seeing the value in spending time sliding around. And so you do have great experience off-road. That'll translate very well to the street. You're going to get a lot more traction on the street, but what people worry about the most is losing traction. And it appears that you will be, I guess, less startled by that when you lose traction. Maybe if you hit a little spot of gravel or whatnot, or a strip of oil. Good question, Phil. Does body positioning change very much when taking turns on a downhill while controlling your speed? Wow. These are really good questions, and I'm trying to connect it to I guess, my experience to the book and then to your experience, trying to make those, connections between the 3 points. And that's really good. Body positioning does it change when taking turns on a downhill while controlling your speed? Body position is comprised of so many things that the one thing we can I guess start with is, let's go to your questions with tight versus sweepers and downhill. Let's take it from the top, because I see somebody put vision there. So we want to start with our head and eyes. If you're going down a hill, you're going to kind of look towards that direction that you're steering in. That's pretty obviously. Head and eyes, we like to turn the head, look where we're going. Vision, LOL vision. Everybody, talks about vision, but really, as long as you're pointing your nose in the direction you want to go, you're going to be fine. Now, in a tighter turn, you may have to really swivel that head around, but still, we don't want to get ahead of ourselves. Now, shoulders, obviously, so if it's a tighter turn, we can't really see as far around the turn, so we're kind of taking it bit by bit. A sweeper, we can kind of see a little bit further down the road. Shoulders should be relaxed. Chest, again, I'm a huge fan of kissing the mirror. It depends on how aggressive you're riding to get your chest center line inside, and we show some pretty good pictures on that in the book. On page 22, you can actually see, this is a little bit harder to show you in my working copy, but you can actually see the difference when people sort of get their chest inside versus put their chest outside of the turn. And then we move on down. Arms should be relaxed, and in a tight turn, you're probably going to have them just as relaxed as you would on a sweeper. I would say this though: if you're in tighter turns and you're going faster, you might tense up a little bit more, and you might outstretch those arms a little bit. So it depends. If you're really comfortable in twisties, you might actually be looser than someone who gets really nervous when they're taking turns that tight. Hands, same thing, I guess. If you're nervous about a tight turn, you might be gripping on for dear life. We don't want to do that. We want to be in full control of our levers and our throttle hand. And to do this, I do talk a lot about hand placement. Now, I'm going to come back to hand placement questions. So think about any hand placement questions or specific body part questions that I can maybe answer. When it comes to the butt, just plant it on the seat. You may slide one butt cheek off or not, if depending on how aggressively you want to corner. Knees, I tend to keep them in, but I basically tell everyone, don't think about your knees. If your knees want to go out, let them go out. If your knees, you want to keep them in nice and tight and pivot around the tank, do that as well. Feet, this one, the feet thing is pretty important, I think. A lot of people they'll put the arch of their foot on the peg, and when I tell them to put the ball of their foot on the peg, they're a little bit surprised by that. Some people have actually said, no, I'd rather prefer to keep the arch of my foot on the peg. Now, if I'm in a tighter turn, as Phil was saying, and my foot is sticking out more, I may be leaning more in those tighter turns, and I could maybe catch my foot on the pavement. Whereas in a sweeper, probably less likely to do that if your feet are a little bit forward on those pegs. Now, vision. It looks like people are really interested in vision here. I do a chapter on vision, and honestly, I don't think that vision is people's biggest problem. I think that it's important. If you're not looking where you want to go, I mean, we talk about that with target fixation, you're going to get yourself perhaps in trouble. But generally speaking, most people are looking where they want to go. They see the turn coming up. But yeah, turning the head could help us make it around that turn. But I will tell you this, Phil, when you go through tight turns and you got that motorcycle more upright as you're going through those turns, you do kind of feel like a superstar, because you feel like you're leaned over just like those MotoGP guys, when in reality it's not even close. But I would just say that body position, there's so many things to it. Now, I go back to the hands. One of the compliments I got from the book, from an early reviewer was that the actual hand placement pictures and things. By the way, this is a working copy. This is the one full color here. This is sort of my lesson plans. This is what I teach out of when I'm doing my courses. But I explain a lot about where to put your hands. It's not just dumping our hands on the grips. There's certain places we can put them to get a little bit more finer control. And the person that did the review said that was kind of a unique thing, that the experienced riders tend to forget about the basics. Now, what other questions do you have? I guess I wasn't quite ready for that question, Phil, but I hope I hit you with a good answer on that. Anything else about body position that I can answer? Looks like I might be losing people. All right. Now, one of the things that I do have as a core concept in here, to go back to that real quick about the sweepers versus the tighter turns. Confident sport riding can be accomplished without deliberate movements below the waist. And, we see people that, drag a knee, this and that. But in actuality, you really don't have to hang off, especially if you're, riding a whole weekend trip or whatever. And, I mean, you could be in good shape, but now, what other questions do we have about body position? Vision will be covered down the road. I have that as a later chapter. I'll talk a little bit more about that. All right, next thing, on to looseness. And then I can circle back around and answer any questions. This is a really good experience for me to sort of interact with, I guess, followers of Cornering Confidence. I don't get a lot of dialogue back and forth, and this is good for me because I want to hear what people have to say. I want to see if I can help people sort out different things. I did get one question tonight that was pretty direct on how maybe someone who's reading my book can put that into place. Also, I love the street versus dirt riding. That is really fantastic. I will say my body position, I guess, techniques are counter to dirt bike riding, generally speaking. You're not pushing the motorcycle beneath you and sitting up on the tank generally, working that slide from behind. Turning a dirt bike really requires that you are sliding that rear in many cases to actually point the motorcycle in the direction you want. So loose surfaces versus sticky pavement, there's going to be some things that probably are not as pertinent when you get on the street, but you're going to be more comfortable, and maybe you'll find you like riding a supermoto. I mean, supermoto are very popular motorcycles, and they can be ridden almost like dirt bikes on the street, but just remember, you're going to have massive amounts of traction compared to a dirt bike when you get on the road there. And looseness. Now, this is an interesting kind of skill that I put in there. Why do you guys out there think that people tense up? What would be the cause of people tensing up? I mean, would you say more people ride tense or loose? Relaxed, if you will. I mean, everybody's going to probably tell you that they like to ride relaxed. In reality, even the best of us, even the best riders, do get into situations where they stiffen up and they're not as loose as they possibly could be. And what I really, I have a kind of a short chapter in the book, in the program on looseness, but we really want to work on breathing techniques. We don't want to be stiff. Things are going to transfer from the front of the motorcycle to the back of the motorcycle in an unforgiving way. Plus, it's exhausting to the body if we're tense. One of the things that a lot of people really don't understand is that when you are gripping the bars very tightly, the fluids in your ears can move around uncomfortably, and that can cause signals to the brain that make you confused and ill and all kinds of things. And that's why personally I find that if I'm feeling kind of a little bit off, if I might be tensing up and I want to let those things happen, those relaxation techniques. Another nice thing to do is take that deep breath before tipping into a curve. So that is also something that is just a relaxation technique to help with looseness. And we don't want to be, now Dale said that confidence or lack of it, or lack of confidence, what kind of things are confidence killers? I mean, when someone has a close call, it really shakes them up. And I know people, actually through my own experience, the first time I went down many years ago on a motorcycle, I mean, I got back on that thing and I was just, I was thinking a deer was going to pop out anywhere, and it took a little while to build up that confidence level. And I call my program Cornering Confidence because I think I'm plugging as many holes as I possibly can in people's confidence by providing them with the knowledge and skills in the formula, in the method, so that they can go out there and practice these skills. And by the way, it doesn't take much experience to master what's in this program. I mean, it really is something I'm extremely proud of. A bit of apprehension tends to cause you to tighten up. Got to learn to stay relaxed, and getting used to riding around cars instead of wide open desert. Yeah, the desert, it has its own set of problems, right? So if you crash out in the middle of nowhere, and the guys that I know that ride in dirt, they're telling me they're always falling off these things. But cars is a totally separate animal, I would say. Now, my Cornering Confidence directly aims to provide safety and enjoyment for people cornering. What I would suggest about getting around the cars and the traffic, reading traffic patterns, in your car right now as you're driving around, when you're in your car, try to think, what's this person going to do? Try to build intuition just in your car as you're driving around. But the MSF Basic Rider course, I know you're probably not going to want to hear that being an experienced rider, but that really is phenomenal for teaching you the skills that you need in traffic. I find that I tense up on the twisties and looking forward to practice. Yeah, Dale, just, keep in touch. I mean, I'm an email away. I mean, I could even pick up the phone and call you if you had a question. But really, practicing is really important. Yeah, the twisties can be very scary. People, everyone, says, man, I love the twisties. I just love riding my motorcycle in the curves. And, boy, the more curves, the better. The tighter, the better. And those same people a lot of times are really just, they're saying that, I think, because it's the right thing to say if you're a motorcyclist. People don't like straight and flat roads, okay? And that's kind of like my guiding principle, play on words there. So just keep that in mind that, practice is really important as well. When driving a car, practice the body position on turns. That's pretty funny. Sometimes if you're turning hard, you got to lean into it. I would say when you're in a car, that's the time probably to do more reading traffic and those kind of things. And of course, body position, riding through traffic is anything that gives you more control for stopping and swerving and those kind of things. And so my particular school focuses more on the cornering aspect, just because there's other schools out there that really hammer down in traffic things. Struggling getting a knee down and out properly. My foot position seems to be right, but I can never seem to get my knee down properly. Is that a big deal? The knee down is something that I wouldn't focus too much on. I really wouldn't. Yes, you can, get in a parking lot. I mean, Lee Parks, when he developed total control and he was working on his knowledge and experience, he would ride around in circles in parking lots so that he could get better in his racing. And he discovered a lot of things that way, and he also discovered he could get his knee down on just about any motorcycle. And there's a couple schools of thought on getting that knee down. First of all, if you're out in traffic, it's going to attract police attention. It might indicate that you're riding a little bit too fast on the street. I teach above the waist primarily sport touring techniques. If somebody wants to work on getting that knee down, there's lots of schools. Go to the track, sign up for track days, and the Total Control program might help you with that as well. Now, I will say about the foot, what you can do is just try to get the balls of your feet on the peg. If you do want to swing your knee out, I wish I was near a motorcycle, but if you take if your foot's on the foot peg and you kind of point your toe sort of out, your knee will go with it if you're really interested in getting that knee out, but it's very hard to kind of show sitting here at the kitchen table. So I actually just took the basic MSF course. Good. It was very beneficial, absolutely. Knocked the rust off some of my skills. One of the things that I do point out in the introduction here is that when you take an MSF class, you're learning the fundamentals. You are learning the basics. And in my book, I talk about a chef who made these really interesting dishes. And I said, how did you come up with all these concoctions? And he said, well, you got to know the rules before you can break them. And that's precisely what I'm trying to impart to the people who follow Cornering Confidence. You're not going to want to ride with fundamental basic skills in tight, twisty turns at a faster pace, right? You can use MSF basic rider course skills if you're going slow. Those are the skills for someone riding under those conditions. But once the speeds pick up, they become a little bit irrelevant in certain aspects, but there are always some fundamentals. And you can see the difference if you were to take the MSF and then read my book or take my online course or one of my coaching tours or whatnot. You can see where we kind of get off the beaten path of the foundational skills versus what we can do differently once we start to pick up those speeds, which kind of brings me to tonight. I wanted to go through straight and flat. I have plenty of videos on YouTube if you want more on straight and flat. Confidence, I may even have some videos on that. Confidence for me is basically knowledge plus experience. You people are here looking for something, some piece of knowledge that you can put into practice. And simply, if you got one thing tonight and you put it in practice, then that could make you more confident. Body position. I did get off to a little rocky start trying to explain the body position with regards to your questions, but really it's not that tough. All right, body position is the primary way we can keep that straight motorcycle by getting our chest center line in. Inside of the turn, I have many videos on that. And of course, looseness. That's just something that we all struggle with. I mean, sometimes I'm riding with my friends and, I just realize I'm tense and I just have to relax. It creeps in, and it's something that we always have to kind of be mindful of. But once you get more confident, then you will loosen up because you're sort of in command of what's happening. And I think when we get nervous, we start to get in trouble. And there's Ron. Ron is here. Ron made it. Twisties are fun. They sure are. And we rode some in Virginia together. And I hope everybody's doing well there from that course. And what I want to point out before we kind of finish up here, I will go for maybe a little Q&A. I'll leave these up. I'm not in too much of a hurry, but I want to maybe keep this to another 5 minutes just so they're not that long. These were the 4 chapters in the program that I really covered tonight. If you guys have any last minute questions about these things, comments even, I'd be glad to answer them. If you want to put something up there. I'm not sure if there's a little delay in the comments of the live chat or not, or if you're just hearing me straight through. Well, okay. Thank you for joining me tonight. It's never too late to pick up a copy of Cornering Confidence or enroll in the online course. Visit corneringconfidence.com for more information. Please be sure to follow me on social media. Instagram, I'm pretty much on daily. I'm actually going to put up some pictures tonight of a trip I took after work, just a little ride around. I'm on Facebook a little bit. And LinkedIn is just sort of like a professional thing for me that I like to do. And tell your friends, sign in with your buddies. Come back next week for live stream number 3 on chapters 5 and 6. These are braking and throttle. If you have braking and throttle questions, I'd like to take those questions and show how Cornering Confidence can help you with the braking and throttle questions. And I really want to say thank you for appreciating it, Brian. I hope to see you back next week. There is 1 week coming up that I'll be on a Monday. You got to watch the actual comments to see if I'm switching dates and times. But generally speaking, these are going to be on Tuesdays. I will be one Monday in November. I'm going to get through the 6 sort of Q&A tutorials, and then I may start them over again for people who sign up for the course, because this is primarily the tutoring session, and if people have questions, this would be a great place for me to answer those. So thank you very much, and take care.